Welcome to all. Jai Bhim, Johar. Thank you all for joining this special International Solidarity meeting to celebrate the second acquittal and release of Professor GN Saibaba, Prashant Rahi, Mishra, Vijay Tirki, and Mahesh Tirki. It's a moment to honor their immense sacrifices, as well as the perseverance of their families and their communities. It's a moment to commemorate the tragic custodial death of co-accused Pandu Narote. It's a moment to celebrate and thank the legal team that worked untiringly in the service of justice. It's a moment of affirming the importance of international solidarity and coalitions for democratic rights and social justice. This meeting is organized by International Solidarity for Academic Freedom in India, a collective of people from around the world dedicated to issues related to academic freedom in India. It's also endorsed by the following international groups: South Asian Diaspora Action Collective, Indian Workers Association Great Britain, India Labour Solidarity UK, Foundation The London Story, the Humanism Project Australia, Hindus for Human Rights in the USA, Free GN Saibaba Coalition USA, Boston South Asia Coalition, India Civil Watch International ICWI, and South Asia Solidarity Group London. Lotika, hand over to you.
As we start this meeting, we would like to begin with a moment's silence to remember Pandu Narote, 32-year-old father of a young daughter, the fifth accused, who should have walked out of jail free, but died of a fever under custody due to the willful negligence of the prison authorities. We also remain mindful that Surendra Gadling, Professor Saibaba's lawyer, who pinpointed all the technical errors and conspiratorial machinations in the charge sheet, himself remains incarcerated as a political prisoner in the Bhim Koregaon case, along with Delhi University Professor Hani Babu, who was part of the Civil Society Committee for the Defense and Release of GN Saibaba, and numerous others who continue to remain behind bars in yet another fabricated case. In the two press conferences after his release, Professor Saibaba's words have provided a searing critique of the dehumanization practiced by the Indian state and its institutions. In the words of N. Venugopal, and himself the subject of a police raid some weeks ago, it's a case of travesty of justice, prolonged legal harassment, agonizing incarceration, cruel and deliberate persecution. Leila.
Professor Saibaba was persecuted for 10 years for becoming the voice of human rights defenders who spoke against the onslaught of Salvajudum, Operation Green Hunt in the forests of Central India. He had become a foot soldier entrusted with unifying the voices of democratic dissent against the state corporate nexus robbing indigenous populations of their birthright to the mineral resources of their lands. In these past 10 years, with Professor Saibaba behind bars, Operation Green Hunt has a new avatar, Operation Samadhan Prahar, which is chillingly translatable as the final solution. The inroads of the global military industrial mining state complex within India are relentless, but not unchallenged. The tremendous resistance to it, though, is barely reported. Few academic voices remain courageous enough to describe the plight of and defend the rights of the citizenry they study and teach about. Many self-censor out of the fear of being silenced. Jyotsna.
Academic freedom comes with increasing risks. We have seen academics being muzzled for speaking up for Palestine in the UK, USA, Europe, Australia, though not without protest. the powerful are threatened by those who think critically, uphold the truth, and refuse to dance to their tunes. Thus, Professor Saibaba, a beloved professor of English and a poet, became a danger who had to be locked away because he thought with courage and taught others to do the same. Isha.
Sai Baba teaches not just thinking critically, but also teaches hope. He wrote these brave, brave words from the Anda cell. When I refused to die, they captured me again. I still stubbornly refuse to die. The sad thing is that they don't know how to make me die, because I love so much the sound of growing grass.
This is a virtual hug from all of us for Sai and Vasanta, for Prashant, Mahesh, Hem, and Vijay, who have all come home, and for Pandu's family, for he could not. And this is a pledge to honor the sacrifices imposed on them by continuing the struggle and voice the protests they gave so much of their lives to. Shruti.
It's a particular honor and joy. It's a moment of joy. I can barely keep my tears back at this moment that we also have with us Professor Saibaba to speak with us today. So I would like to first of all hand over the mic to you, Professor Saibaba, just to share a few words, whatever you feel like saying at this moment. And can I request everyone else to please mute yourself? Professor Saibaba, please go ahead. You are muted right now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Thanks a lot for calling me here. And I am very happy to be with you today, this evening. It's really great that I could see you, all of you, and meet you and talk to you. I would like to say a few words, and in a few, just in a 2-3 few minutes, not much really today because of my health condition. I would like to first of all thank all the international collectives which have been raising their voice for the freedom of the people, of the marginalized people, and also for their rights. This is, for me, this kind of an international solidarity is very, very, very important. And I really feel very happy that you have been doing this for a long time, and without taking the name of every group, because I am not even aware of what's happening outside, and how many collectives, how many community groups have been raising the voice. Everything I am not aware of. I just come out and now trying to learn what has happened in the world in the past 7 years. And so I thank everyone, every collective, every group, international community groups that supported me and my family so strongly. And today I am a free man, and I am before you because of this collective voice, the collective voice of the international community and the collective voice of the people who stood on the streets for our release across India. I also thank a number of lawyers who worked on the charge sheet, the false kind of a charge sheet that on my charge sheet, and came up with analysis to show the world that how this case is a fabricated case. As this was happening all over the world, we were I kind of mental torture and some of the physical torture we were going through in the undercell there. Amidst the kind of scalar and this kind of dark times I spent there in the undercell, there are some certain moments of hope and light also. Tonight I wanted to share those points with you. Though the undercell was a closed one and no permission was allowed, or all restrictions are imposed to interact with the other prisoners, all the 3,000 prisoners always tried to contact me, speak to me. Why? Why do they want to speak to me, even though such restrictions were imposed that this man should not interact with anyone? You know that there are many people within the prison who have psychological problems. Unfortunately, they were kept in a barrack within the prison hospital, and they are chained to their cots. Can you imagine those who are facing such challenges because of the prison conditions? They were not in such condition when they were out, and you chain them. What happens to such people? But how I could see each time I visited the prison hospital that they were the most sanest people. Why? If a person who is branded as psychologically challenged and chained to a kind of iron cord, and he's shouting, "Sir, I wanted to talk to you. I know about you. I heard about you. I read about you." They were shouting to talk to me. I was not allowed to go, but they could not stop. They could not stop. And the kind of things they shared with me amazed me. And even in that kind of a state, they read newspapers, they came to know about me, what I do. That's the hope. They said, like, you can do something for us. We can go out. And they were appreciative of my work, and they were hoping that something will happen just because they have shouted and wished me and talked to me. But they are very, very sane people who are branded as psychologically challenged, and in fact, chaining them to the courts is illegal, but still it was going on. I mean, the whole ray of hope I could see in the eyes of those people, the worst kind of conditions that were facing in the prison, branded as psychological patients, violent psychological patients, branded, they were not. And many of them, after talking to me and understanding the situation in the jail, they slowly got out of these chains and the hospital. I taught them how to get rid of this. In what way you should behave so that they cannot any longer chain you like this and brand you like this. They did. That was a great ray of hope for me. Every time I was really happy when it happened and when they. Another thing that I wanted to share, there are many things, but only one more aspect I will share. Everyone in my barrack, in my yard of the under cell, who were all mostly not learned the alphabet, mostly from the tribal communities and also from Dalits and most backward classes. They had kind of such a desire to read and write. It could not happen because there were no opportunities for them when they were outside. They were not criminals. They were branded as criminals. Petty crimes. And tonight, I am very happy to share with you some of them, or most of them, whom I taught, who did not know even how to read and write the basic alphabet, graduated. And at least 2 reached post-graduation. And some of them, they left with their degrees in hands. What I saw is that the kind of desire they had for education and the kind of dedication they had shown to learn from alphabet to come to a kind of stage of degree stage. How is it possible that they could do this in such a short period in their life at the adult time? That shows that I learned from them one thing, that people are really interested in education, but our society doesn't provide it. Most people are not able to go to school, not able to go to higher education because the opportunities were not there. And also, even the opportunities were given, they had to earn their bread first. Without that, they cannot, first think of for education and all that. But they all have great desire for that. So they can do it also. They can do it. They have the capacity to do it. They could have done it when they were in their childhood. But there were no opportunities. And, from that, what I learned is that as a teacher, from the very beginning in my life, at a very young age, I've been involved in teaching. Now I feel I remained a teacher in prison as well. Though prison authorities tried to prevent, but the prisoners' strong will prevailed. From this experience, I wanted to do in future more efforts to take education, to take schooling to the people who actually really need today and deprived of it. I used to wonder in my prison cell day and night, what should I do? How do I do it? I have some ideas, but I wanted to do it with a determination that there is a kind of a vast section of marginalized sections of people today in India who are kept away from education, educational institutions. Let's not go by the percentages of literacy and all that. That is not any indication. It is what we know is that vast masses of the people, they are kept away. The tribal people who came from the remote villages, why they wanted to do this and how they could pass graduation within the short period. So in my life, I wanted to do something where we can reach out to the remotest of the places to give education. To give education to the people is actually to make them aware of their rights, and they will take care of how to protect their rights. So this was great hope when I saw and remember even today how the people studied and passed out and walked out of the gates with their degrees in their hands, who worked and who helped me in every aspect, not only the two helpers. They also studied, they also gained, and the others also. This is another aspect. And thank you very much for giving this opportunity. And I would like to once again thank all the collectives, international community collectives, which supported me and my family, because of which I am a free man and speaking to you, standing up before you today. And thank you very much.
Professor Saibaba, thank you so much for those really inspiring words. I mean, it strikes me that though you are just barely out for a few hours from prison, you are speaking now, after all these years, you are speaking about the rights of those who need to be defended, who continue to be incarcerated, the education. You are speaking of these issues, and it shows the spirit of social justice that is so deep in your heart and mind, which is really a big inspiration to all of us here. Thank you so much. I'm at a loss of words actually to express it that well. I know that you are exerting yourself to sit in front of the screen for us. Please feel free to leave whenever you need to and take rest. If you can, though, I would like to invite Mihir Desai, senior human rights lawyer, to say a few words. Mihir, if you could please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Welcome. Thank you for joining the meeting.
Hello, Mihir. Hello, Mihir. Great to see you here.
Hello, how are you?
Thanks a lot.
How
I could not talk to you.
No problems. I just talked to Vasant 5-10 minutes back. So anyway, welcome, Sai. Back to the grind, of course. I'm sure you'll continue working the way you did earlier, you did in the prison. I just wanted to say a few words. First of all, let's welcome wholeheartedly the judgment which has come from the Bombay High Court, releasing all the accused, acquitting them. It's not only, but at the same time, I feel a little sad that today we are celebrating release of a person after 10 years who should never have been in jail for even a day. And that is the situation which is happening in India today, that a lot of people are in jail. We fight for their bail applications, we fight for their release, we fight for their acquittal. At the end of it, most of them get acquitted, some of them get bail, and we are very happy that we managed to get them bail. But what is really saddening is that these people should never have been in jail. Okay? So acquittal is a great thing. It also, I welcome the judgment because it's not only a brilliant judgment, but it is also a bold judgment. Now remember, this is second acquittal of Saibaba and others. The first acquittal was given by a bench of Bombay High Court, which was stayed on a Saturday by the Supreme Court, and then the matter was sent back. The first judgment was also brilliant. And the judge who gave the judgment resigned after a few months. I don't want to say why he resigned and all that. But it's always one can read between the lines. Okay. So despite that, when a complete acquittal comes, and that was an acquittal on procedural grounds, on sanction, a sanction was not properly given. Well, this is an acquittal not only on procedural grounds but also on merits. Okay? So it's not just. I mean, the court has gone into various, because look at what was the case against Saibaba and the others. The case was not that they were found with bombs, they were found with arms, they were found with money. That was not the case. The case was not that they were planning to organize a particular bomb blast or particular armed robbery or something like that. That was not the case. The case was that some material was recovered from them. Material was recovered from them, and that recovery itself showed that they would be planning to do something which nobody knew what they were planning to do. I mean, that was the long and short of the case. Okay, the material was recovered from their material, pamphlets, etc. The court came to the conclusion that it's extremely doubtful that any kind of material has been recovered from these people. Okay, because the court went into the evidence and saw that the people who seized the material, their evidence was quite shady and weak. In fact, people were shown to be arrested on a day much before they were actually arrested, and therefore seizure could not have happened on a subsequent date. All those things the court went into, but the court also went into another thing, namely that let me assume that the material is actually recovered from them. Okay? Let me assume that that's what the court says. Let us assume that the material is actually recovered from them. Does this mean that, does this material, even if it is recovered, does it lead to a finding of some kind of terrorist activity? And the court said nothing doing. No. Just because you keep material which is in dissent of the government, just because it is critical of the government, houses a particular item, doesn't make you a terrorist. And that's something very, very significant about this judgment. That not only on procedural grounds, but also on substantive grounds, the court have found them not guilty. That's something very, very important. We should welcome it. Of course, now the matter, they've rushed to the Supreme Court. The matter has gone to Supreme Court. But I'm sure that, I'm reasonably sure, I mean, as much as one can be sure in these times in India, I'm reasonably sure that now we are looking at Saibaba outside jail for all times. Okay, that kind of thing. But so we have to realize the fact that more and more in India you have these kind of cases coming up. More and more in India you have cases where dissent is being strangulated completely. Anybody who dissents, anybody who says anything against Mr. Modi or Mr. Amit Shah is being put behind bars. Okay. Anybody who says anything against the armed forces and their human rights violation is treated as an anti-national. Okay. So in that context, I think this is a beacon of light, this judgment. And we will, of course, use it also in various other cases, okay, where similar kind of charges are made. But and the whole attempt of the government has been to earlier. What used to happen was people were being, the foot soldiers were being arrested, put behind bars, released after some days, some months, etc., etc. Now more and more they have decided that they will actually attack the people who give voices to the marginalized. You stop the voices to the people who are giving voices to the marginalized, and you stop the marginalized from being, organizing and opposing various policies. That's one thing. The other thing I wanted to end by just saying one thing that as one of the speakers earlier mentioned, that as far as as far as this case is concerned, Sai Baba's case is concerned, what is very significant is, yes, of course, brilliant judge was done at the High Court level by the legal team which appeared for him and for various other people. But we must not forget the extremely brilliant job done by Surendra Gadling and his team at the level of the trial court. Because a lot of what the acquittal is a result of the cross-examination. The very, very strategic, intelligent cross-examination done by Surendra Gadling and his team at the Sessions Court level. Unfortunately, for the very same reason, Surendra Gadling is today in jail, and he's been in jail for more than 5 years. I remember the first time I went to Surendra asked me to appear in Sai Baba's bail, medical bail matter. Okay. And when I went for the medical bail matter, on the day when I went there, Surendra was arrested. So I couldn't meet Surendra on that day when I went for the bail matter. So I think it's something very significant. And just lastly, I just wanted to say that there has been, while the court comes to the conclusion that the police investigation is extremely doubtful, that police seem to have fabricated documents, police seems to have fabricated seized material, they have not ordered any investigation against the investigating authorities. And this is something which I think we should all take up. Namely, when at the end of 10 years, Sai Baba is out, but the people who actually framed him are not at all in the picture now. I mean, in the sense that they have not been castigated, there is no action directed against them. And if action is not directed against people who frame, this action will keep on getting repeated. There will be another batch of people, because the police know, the investigating agencies know that, yeah, okay, after 10 years somebody is acquitted, but we will not face any harm. So let's frame this person. Let's fabricate evidence. So from there, so I think that is also something which we should look at. Thank you very much, and welcome back, Sai Baba. And thanks the organizers for organizing this meeting. Need of the hour. Thank you very much.
Thank you to you too for joining us, Mihir Desai, for the important also statement and reminder for the necessity not only to hold people to account for this injustice of the last 10 years for the incarceration of GN Saibaba and all others, just as we also celebrate this moment that he's released. I would like to move on there. We have a number of people attending this meeting who we've invited to say a few words. I'd like to ask if Professor Haragopal is present, Chair of the Defense Committee for GN Saibaba. If you are present, could you please unmute yourself? Professor Haragopal. Or if you are not yet, if he is not yet here at the meeting, can I invite Sophia Karim? Sophia, could you unmute yourself to join? Sophia, artist, architect, and activist who has brought the voice of GN Saibaba around the world. Welcome, Sophia.
Thank you. I find it's hard for me to speak, Professor. It's a real honor. I can't really quite believe I'm seeing you. I think I can't say much. I will let my art speak for me. One thing I want to say is I never even knew you. I was so captivated by your case that for 4 years I worked around your case and made art around your case. And my progression as an artist and an architect would never have been on this trajectory without you. And so when you say that you were teaching people in jail, I can also say that you were teaching me outside jail, as in I'm outside the jail and you were teaching me. I hope I continue to speak about you. Even yesterday, I had to do a talk about feminism and Palestine, and I spoke about you and your case. I have this little box here, and Vasantha sent me this box. And inside this box is a little parakeet feather I found on the street in London. And you maybe know why the parakeet is significant, because I wrote to you and asked you which is your favorite color, and you said, I see no colors from my cell, but the color I long to see, the color I love since childhood, is parakeet green. That's the color of freedom and the color of earth. So I used to keep this in Vasantha's box, and I used to make a wish every day that you're free, but not only a wish for you, also in my moments of despair, I also use the feather to make wishes for me. And so often I would say to people that I think Professor Sai helps me more than I help him. That's all I'll say for now.
Thank you so much, Sophia, for those beautiful words. I also just wanted to share with everybody that a line that I exchanged with Sophia. Sophia wrote a message to me just after we were both, we all heard the news of the release, that sometimes justice feels like love. And that this feeling of love is so tied also to the feeling of justice. And I think this is an important lesson for all of us who are involved in struggles and in these kind of efforts to remind ourselves about, and a lesson that we have all also learned from Professor Saibaba's writings and poems, and from the spirit that we also hear today in his in your words. So thank you, Sophia, for this. I'd like to invite now Ryan Costello. Ryan, who's from the Saibaba Defense Coalition in the USA. Ryan, could you kindly join us? Unmute yourself, please.
Hi, thank you very much for having me. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm very, very glad to be here, and I'm obviously very excited, Saibaba, that you've been released. First, just to say, as you were speaking about helping mental patients in the prison, I couldn't help but think of Manto's famous story, Toba Tek Singh, about Bishan Singh, who was a mental patient in Lahore after partition, who was released. There's a story. And then he's sent back to India. And then India says, oh, we don't want you. You're actually, your village is, Toba Tek Singh is in Pakistan. And he ends up in the border between the two barbed wire fences. And I was thinking, well, how many Bishan Singhs are there now in the prisons of India? But it doesn't surprise me to hear that while we were all fighting for your release, that you were fighting for others in prison and helping others, educating others. And I think that's really a lot of what's inspired me personally in learning about your case and the work that you've done. First, I'll just say a little bit of background. I first heard about Saibaba in 2016 when I had joined a Marxist Capital study group. We were reading through Capital, and there was discussion and debate over, well, is this stuff relevant today, and kind of things that come up. And actually Saibaba's case and the struggles of people in India were referenced as an example of the relevance and applicability of Marxism to our current moment. So that was kind of a very important thing for me as a young Marxist. It really, your case and the work that you've done, and I read numerous interviews that you've done around the world, in Sweden and elsewhere, really opened my eyes to an international perspective that I didn't have. And this was important for me and for many others here in the US. You know, the movement in the US, we have a lot of big protests, but in terms of the working class movement and the ability to sustain struggles, it's been at a low point, somewhat akin to maybe the situation in Britain after the revolution of 1848 and the Chartists were defeated, where for 40 years there was a lot of malaise and nihilism and hopelessness. And that certainly is a big thing in the US today. But learning about your case and learning about the popular movements in India, I couldn't but feel hopeful. And so I'm just going to talk briefly just about kind of a few important things that I learned from you, Saibaba, although we've never met and never spoken. And they're relevant not just for me, but for others, I think, and for many who I've spoken to and told about your case. The first is back in 2016, like many Americans, I knew very little about India. I mean, I knew of Gandhi and Nehru, and that was about it. And of course, you know, I'd heard various news events, but knew very little. And so it's kind of striking that one can be ignorant of a country in which 1/6 of humanity lives. But unfortunately, it's a very common thing in the US, given the imperialist culture here, that kind of encourage us, even those of us on the left, to be ignorant of the rest of the world. We don't consciously take that up, but we have to consciously struggle against it. And learning about you and the work that you've done really helped me in that regard. And this is kind of a theme of my remarks, but learning about the struggles in India of the Adivasis, the struggles against Operation Green Hunt and Salwa Jadum, of the farmers movement more recently, the struggle of Dalits and others, it couldn't but fill me with hope and a sense of what's really possible. A sense that, you know, despite all the lies and nonsense, that history has ended and that there's no change, and just, you know, the plastic existence of consumer society will spread over the world and everyone will be happy, or at least something, wasn't true. And that there was a better world that was possible. What's more, learning about India, learning about your case, learning about the popular struggles really instilled within me an understanding of what's really meant by proletarian internationalism. That, I mean, to begin to see the way in which the United States is involved in keeping the people in India and so many other places around the world in neo-colonial chains. I grew up opposed to the Iraq War and the war in Afghanistan, but I didn't really understand the true nature of the capitalist system and how whole countries are kept in subjugation, how hundreds of millions of people stand to be displaced in India alone to get the minerals that lay beneath the forests in central India, and how the government is willing to do that to benefit not the people, but multinational corporations, and to do it at gunpoint. And to learn of the popular resistance of that against that, which is not fighting some, heroic last stand doomed to defeat, but is, people standing up and fighting back and winning real victories. And of course, as we see with the farmers' movements, then, the promises to not go forward with the black laws from the government need to then be, enforced through more protest and more struggle. But it's quite inspiring. And, if you had told me when I was first learning about these things that there were hundreds of thousands of troops deployed in central India, that the US government was deploying or selling, weaponry to the Indian government to help in its war against its own people, I would have not disagreed, but I would have been kind of shocked. And I certainly was initially learning about it. But this knowledge kind of helped to wake me from a state of ignorance of the rest of the world, to learn a bit of what it means to not only understand the rest of the world, but then to organize and fight for our collective liberation. And I think this is particularly important now, this perspective, when we see, increasingly, not just this genocide in Gaza, but the ratcheting up of a new Cold War and the plans the US has to so-called friendshore. And by the US, of course, I don't mean the people here, I mean the elite, the corporations, the capitalists, to move a whole bunch of production from the United States, or sorry, from out of China. US companies are in China, the US's major imperialist rival, to move these production to India, to set up horrifying special economic zones, to displace people, as was done, for example, in West Bengal. And that's another thing I learned about through reading your work, Saibaba, was the struggles in Lalgarh and Nandigram and Singer and elsewhere. And so having and instilling this perspective and talking about it, sharing it with others here in the US, with the working class movement, is so important, because constantly the elite here in the US, they want to, reduce the struggle, the popular struggles, but especially the working class struggle, to fight just around better wages, hours, and conditions. Just get a few more a little more pennies, a little better working conditions. Don't see how your struggle is linked to the struggle of the people in India, the Adivasis, the Dalits, the farmers. Don't see the intimate connection and the way in which the ruling class here gathers their strength and gains power and influence and wealth by what they're doing and supporting in India. And, you know, against this kind of narrow scope of the struggle, and of course, people need to fight for better wages, hours, and conditions, better, you know, basic reforms. But I'm reminded of what the Irish revolutionary James Connolly said, which is, we only want the world. And in reading your work, Saibaba, and interviews that you've done, I couldn't help but feel that perspective coming through. And lastly, I'll just say one thing really that I learned from you, and I had a sense of beforehand, but it shines through in all of your writing, and especially your poetry, which was already referenced by others, but it was a sense of hope. I mentioned earlier just the difficulties of the situation in the US, the low level of struggle, the imperialist culture, the kind of individualism, just the brutal cutthroat individualism that persists in our society here. It's very challenging for people. And to see the hope that you have and to feel it really reading your poetry is really inspiring. And I spoke to a number of students in the US, in Canada, in Britain, and elsewhere about your case. And one of the questions that kept coming up, students have, like, given the medical conditions you have, which we talk about, and the challenges and the way in which the state was torturing you by depriving you of treatment and in so many ways seeking to just hurt you and mentally, how did you persist? And the one thing I kept coming back to was, you know, hope, and not a naive optimism, not a shallow, it'll all work out in the end, but a realistic optimism based on a deep faith in the masses of people that they can break all chains and overcome all oppression. And to me, that's the biggest thing really that's hardest to teach. You know, we can teach various theoretical matters, and those are important, but to really instill in others a sense of abiding hope, to stand as you did for so many years through the grueling imprisonment, it is really quite an inspiration. And so to close, I just want to say, when you were released on bail, I remember you said that you'd been taken from a smaller prison and released into a bigger prison. And I think that's very much still the case for us today, that the societies around the world are a prison for so many, even for those not in prison. In the most extreme case, of course, we see the situation for the people in Gaza who have lived for years in an open-air prison and are now facing brutal bombardment and genocide. But even those, for example, of us in the US who enjoy formal freedom and democracy, we live in an extremely repressive society where a very, very small number of people are able to dictate the course of development of the vast majority of the lives of humanity. And if you step out of line and stand up, they bring down repression on you in one form or another. And so I just wanted to end with that emphasis of all the work that we still have to do in front of us. And while this is a celebration, and honestly, it's very, very wonderful that you're released, I hope that we can all keep in mind all the work that we have to do going forward, and that this victory, a very important victory, can be something that inspires us to continue the struggles in front of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan, also for reminding us and making clear how the struggles and the around the release of Professors GN Saibaba and others are connected to questions of transnational capitalism and imperialism around the world, and that we need to understand that this is not only about individuals, but about an interconnected struggle. So thanks a lot for that. I'd like to now move on and invite the writer and activist Meena Kandasamy. Meena, if you are here, could you kindly unmute yourself?
Hi.
Welcome.
Yes, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks to InSAF for for organizing this meeting. Actually, I lived in India, and my biggest regret is I never knew Sai before he was in prison. He was also an English professor, and I have been to Delhi many times, but our paths never crossed. And then when it crossed, it was in the very, this is the first time I'm seeing Sai in the wild. So I'm so happy, comrade and professor, I'm so happy that you're here. You're here with us. It is a dream come true. I don't have too much to say except three things. And the first thing is that the enormous respect that you have among everybody is unparalleled, that you are never alone, and you have never been alone, because I would go and, talk to somebody to sign a petition or talk to the parliamentarians or something. And even if we were getting a petition for Vararao, they would tell me, make sure you add Sai Baba's name. Make sure you add Sai Baba's name. And I would say, but this is the Bhima Koregaon, but they would be like, no, injustice is injustice. So everywhere, I think what you did in these years, I mean, you suffered, but I think what you have done is in 10 years, you have become the conscience keeper of a country. You have become the person when we know something is very wrong. We know that, you being in jail, I think symbolized the breakdown, that we know that the system was not working. The system was not working for the people, that the system was shutting up voices. This system was, going after everyone. And I think that in that sense, you became everybody's moral compass. Like, I mean, all of us could not put our life on the line. We could not put ourselves on the line as much. But what you have done is incredible. It is revolutionary. So I really have to, give my Lal Salam and my Jai Bhim and all my greetings to you for that. It's amazing because wherever we have gone, the word, to talk, and also, and as much as the proud of talking about you in private meetings, the public fear of also talking about you showed me where we stand. And two things can be the same at once, and this was the other mirror image of the fact. So on the one hand, everyone felt about this. On the other hand, how in our country everything works through association. So if you talk about Sai Baba, therefore you are Maoist, therefore you are a problem, therefore you are a troublemaker. And this also existed in our country. And in that sense, I always think that what they have done is they go after a very powerful, very important thinker, individual, to show a lesson to other people, to show everybody that if you talk too much, if you are asking the right questions, if you stand for a class struggle, or if you stand for equality, if you stand for let us say representation for all the people, for the poor people, and especially, as I said, if you stand for education, because it's not easy to be in today's extremely Brahmanical academia who talks about these political things. If you stand for the right of education, they have made a lesson out of you. And on the one hand, that's what your poetry collection says. Why do you fear my way so much? On the other hand, they precisely fear your way because it is like it cannot be contained. Your ideas cannot be contained. Your revolutionary thoughts cannot be contained. The power that you symbolize, whether it's inside the prison or outside the prison, cannot be contained. So I'm very happy that, and I hope you please take care of your health. That you do not again make us all very scared for what is happening with you. Please, I mean, enjoy the time, give some time to writing and to resting and to build back the health, because it's so fundamental and so crucial to fight under fascism. And the second thing I want to say is that I am so honored, in life, it's earlier Sophia was talking, you were talking about all the prisoners you educated. And in my own life, I felt that you provided a litmus test in my life. You may never be aware of that, but I remember meeting Comrade Vasanta, and she showed me a letter from prison, and you had written these poems, and in one line you said, Mina can maybe help to publish. And that day I understood what my life was, what I had worked, all these books and all this exposure and whatever, celebrity or, being read everywhere. I thought this is what life is, that, you come to a place where if you have any power at all, if you have any say at all, if you actually belong to this community of writers, if you actually belong to this Indian English writing or whatever you call it, this literary landscape, that your responsibility, that you have to get this done. And I am so happy that even though I never saw you or never meet you, that this is real, that this happened, and we could take your ideas outside to people, and also reading the letters and to I was in one evening, I was with your daughter and with Comrade Vasanta, and they were showing me the letters. And I realized that, and everybody should know this, is that what happens to poetry in a prison cell? That, okay, all the, we think prison writing is a genre of its own, that people are writing in prison. But I realized when I saw the letters of Sai that a poem is not written like a poem. A poem is not written with stanza breaks. A poem is not written on a, new and fresh and beautiful. A poem is smuggled inside the other lines of text he writes. That even the art of literature becomes like, an act of resistance. That the way we articulate becomes so powerful but so immense. And in that collapse, in the collapse of the poetry into sentence, in that collapse of the structure of the poem, I felt the kind of collapse that's happening to all expression, to all freedom, and to all struggle, because that is how we are forced to exist. That we cannot exist in the space that a poem wants to take. We cannot exist in the way the lines want to break. That we are forced to exist as, something somebody else will decipher, something somebody else will, stretch it whole, something somebody else will give meaning. So it was such a lesson to me to read and to be part of this. And I am going to come and see you in Delhi. I don't have anything more to say, so I just came back yesterday. So sometime this week or next, I want to come and meet you. Thank you to everyone who is here, and thank you for giving me the opportunity. I have thousands of things to say, but I'm just so grateful and happy, and I feel like this fresh infusion of energy inside me, just seeing the comrades sitting here in freedom. Because, we thought you are like some kind of Mumia Abu Jamal, like we spend our life asking for the freedom of this person, and it becomes our identity. But the person inside, what is going to happen to them? And big congrats to Mihir Desai, to Nihal Singh, to all the lawyers, and to all the other people who are also incarcerated with you. And most of all, I really, it's very difficult to fall in love with Marxist for many reasons, because they are so pure and they are so argumentative. But then I saw in Comrade Vasanta what is radical love. And so you don't only inspire us in struggle, but you also inspire us in love, which holds the future, and which is how we will fight fascism. So thank you, Professor. Thank you, Comrade. And thank you, all of you.
Yes, thank you, Meena, for your beautiful words. And we share the spirit and the enthusiasm and the energy that we are all feeling at this moment in celebrating this together. I believe Professor Haragopal has joined the meeting. Could I request you to please speak, Professor Haragopal?
Yeah.
Welcome.
Am I audible? Yeah. In fact, on behalf of the Defense Committee of Saibaba, I thank InSAF for organizing this interaction. Of course, we had last 2 days our civil liberties meeting, and we have been there for right from because we were celebrating 50 years of civil liberties in the combined state, and of course now in the state of Telangana. And that's why we were very busy. And of course, in the meeting, there was definitely a reference to Saibaba's confinement, and of course, the recent judgment by the Bombay High Court. Certainly, it's a landmark judgment in the recent past, because judiciary, in India, has been a bit vulnerable, and the institution did not maintain the type of autonomy, the type of justice system that one expects in a constitutional democracy. I think this also time to share with this group that it is amazing willpower of Sai Baba that sustained him. And given the ailments, given the type of letters he wrote to me, and of course to Vasanta, were very moving. It was also a piece of literature. I mean, the suffering that he was going through in the prison I don't know, Indian state has to be a little impersonal. So that's one of the characteristics of state is that is governed by a constitution, it should be impersonal. But it looked as if that, they are taking a revenge against a person. This is not the character of a state. It can't be revengeful. I mean, it can't say that, no, he has to be punished. But the Indian state, the way it conducted itself, is something, as a student of political science, I am really shocked that the way state took up this whole thing. As a chairman of the Defense Committee, I would also perhaps confess that we were just helpless. A stage came where we didn't know what to do. We had Prashant Bhushan, we had Arundhati Roy, we had Nandita Menon. I mean, we had very, eminent people as a part of the Defense Committee, but we reached a dead end because nothing was working, and whatever we were trying to intervene, it was not working. Some of the best lawyers also responded. And my own feeling is that this particular judgment will hopefully inspire people, because Sai Baba has been confined just because of his beliefs. I have written a couple of articles, and he was confined because of this. This is a major danger, that somebody is punished, just because somebody has certain outlook, certain approach to understand life, to understand the society, understand the crisis of the society, and somebody therefore responds. He's also a student of literature, therefore, he has been extensively writing. And I think just now this young lady, who spoke so emotionally about the poetry of Sai Baba. He, of course, jail, I think, is one of the sources of creativity. Lots of creative works have, and his poetry book is just amazing. But the question that InSAF has been engaged and has to continuously debate is that whether a person can be convicted for his beliefs, for the type of, ideas one has. Now, if a person doesn't have certain value systems, certain, belief systems, certain way of understanding, I don't know whether that type of life, as Marx says, it may be hollowed life. Sai Baba's life is full of meaning. He was a good teacher. He was immensely liked by students. And all of us have known him because Sai Baba was a student of University of Hyderabad, where I was the faculty. Of course, he was in the literature department. I was the political science. I saw in those days we didn't have a wheelchair. He used to crawl with certain gloves to his hand. He used to crawl. And Hyderabad University buildings were not disabled friendly. So climbing, the stairs and all that he used to do. And, but at the same time, he was an extremely good student. His own colleagues used to say that he's a very, very bright student. The way he struggled through his life, and then, he became a faculty member, and he's a good teacher, and he's a good human being. And, he was sympathetic to the tribal struggles, Adivasi struggles, or the Dalit struggles. Is it wrong? We are asking the Indian society to reflect. Is it wrong if somebody has concern for the marginalized section, for somebody who is completely, neglected, or who are continuously suffering? Now, I think this is very dangerous. The humanity in a human being, which is alive, which has certain deep concerns for the other human being, if you find that as a fault, then humanity in the human beings will be completely robbed. I think that's where Sai Baba's case has to be looked from multiple angles. He's disabled himself, but he had concern for the marginalized. He has very strong belief systems, and he was very humane. And then he's a good teacher, and he has been a very responsive person. So I think this discussion on Sai Baba is most welcome. And I can say that Telugu society, of course, even all over India, there was a very positive response. I'm sure this also has been factored into what the judgment has come. But thank everyone who is present. More than 80 persons are present in this discussion. I personally thank each one of you for participating in this very meaningful debate, and a debate which, is also a debate on future of humanity, future of Indian state, future of Indian democracy, future of the constitutional values. I think that's why I would consider this debate an extremely meaningful debate by all colleagues who joined this debate. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Haragopal. I think those are really important words and a note on which we can come to a conclusion of this meeting. I'm also mindful of the fact that Professor Saibaba has been with us now for over an hour. And I really appreciate also that you have been sitting with us to join and attend this meeting. I don't want to take more of your time to exert you even further. Thanks to all of you for taking part, for joining us in this moment of celebration and moment of commemoration, moment also of reminding ourselves of how individual struggles are interconnected across the world, transnationally, and across different areas of facets of life and democracy. Please continue to be in touch with us. InSAF India will continue the work, and we will be in touch with you, Professor Saibaba, and with all others. We continue the struggle. No one is free until all of us are free. Jai Bhim, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you very much.
Please take care of yourself. Take good rest.
Thank you.
Sending you lots of love and solidarity. Also to Basanta, lots of love and solidarity.